Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you to our last of 4 leadership webinars in a series offered by Alumni Engagement at Memorial University. This series wouldn't have been possible without our partnership with the Gardner Center and the support of the Conference and Event Services team at Memorial's Amera Innovation Exchange. Before we get things underway, I just wanted to take a brief moment to thank you all for joining us and taking the time to connect. Life is certainly more challenging these days, and we're all affected differently. Something you may have heard is that Memorial has been fundraising for our student emergency funds for both undergraduate and graduate students who have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Students have been displaced from the residences and living space. Some have lost technology required for learning, which they had access to while campus was in normal operations. They need support for paying basic bills, buying groceries, and complications due to health conditions, and so on. While donations have been frequent, the need from students continues, and I just want to say that if you're interested at all in contributing, you can do so via mun.ca/give, and I'll share that link in the email that you'll get after this event, but I just wanted to take a moment to speak to that. But here we are today, a large amount of us, there's 150 right now. Here we are, a family of alumni and friends sharing the desire to connect, learn, and grow with the challenges that we're facing. So I just want to say thank you for joining us. We're very lucky to have Lyle Wetsch with us to discuss communicating with digital and social media tools. Mr. Wetsch is an associate professor of marketing at Memorial University of Newfoundland, with over 275 presentations and publications in the past 16 years. Through the Gardner Center at the Faculty of Business Administration, he has designed and offers training through the Digital and Social Media program for the past decade. The Digital and Social Media program has trained over 1,500 participants in over 10,000 modules across 4 3-day training programs. As a Google partner, his company, Digital Marketing Consultants, has assisted small, medium, and large business and organizations, as well as provincial and federal government departments, with the development, design, and implementation of the digital and social media strategic, tactical, and audit plans. Today, we'll be continuing to test our WebEx online platform and its features, so I'll ask your patience if any glitches occur. That's much appreciated. And at the end of the event, we'll also have an audience poll to gather your thoughts and feedback, not only on the event today, but also any ideas you may have on future webinar topics that you'd like us to provide. This event is being recorded and will be available online in the days following the event. Lyle will present for approximately 20 minutes, followed by 20 minutes of a Q&A period. Regarding the Q&A period, to ensure that I get your questions, and you can type these in at any time during the webinar, I ask that you only use the Q&A function on the right of this window. You might have to click the little arrow to the left of the Q&A letters to expand it, but questions can be shared publicly or to me privately, but please avoid using the chat function for sending questions or sending questions to the background host, John Duff, or Mr. Wetsch himself. Yes, so I think that's everything. Lyle, thank you very much for being here today. I'll hand it over to you.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to have a chat with everybody today, to take a look at some of the things that are going on with regards to communicating with digital and social media tools. What I really want to do is to take a look at this from 2 dimensions over the course of the next 20 minutes. One, which is taking a look at some of the main changes that have been occurring on a regular basis, but also some of the adjustments that organizations are needing to make operating in this environment that we're in today, operating under COVID-19. So one of the things that I just want to sort of start off is just to lay a little bit of a groundwork about where things are going within the digital and social media space. And what we're seeing is that the big players are still quite strong in the space. Facebook is sitting at about 2.6 billion monthly active users. YouTube has had amazing growth. They're sitting about 2.1. But one of the things I want to bring your attention to that we will be talking about a little bit later is that when you're dealing with messaging applications, for about the last 5 years, the top 4 messaging applications have had more monthly active users than the top 4 social media platforms. And what we see is that WhatsApp, Messenger, and WeChat are the next in line as far as monthly active users. So really only Facebook and YouTube are getting more people utilizing them than the actual messaging applications. Instagram comes next at 1 billion monthly active users. And then, thanks to TikTok challenges under COVID-19, TikTok is now sitting at 800 million monthly active users. They've really cranked things up. And then we sort of close off with things like Pinterest, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Snapchat doesn't report monthly active users. They only report daily active users, and they're reporting 229 million. Just to put that into perspective, that is a little over double the number of monthly active users that are on Twitter. So Snapchat is fairly strong within that context as well. So to really sum up what's going on with regards to the presentation, hang on a sec, Jack. Oh. Sorry, John, is that, whoop.
Thanks.
Is that a little bit better with the slide there?
Yeah, now we're taking up the full window there.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Part of the window. Thank you.
Sorry. All right, sorry about that, folks. So one of the key things that we can really sum up when we're taking a look at the main elements of messaging as we move into 2020, we can really sum things up in 3 key areas. It's either about messaging, it's about stories, and it's about video. And that's really where organizations need to think about these 3 main elements in how they go about deploying their content and putting those pieces out there. When we look at it from a messaging standpoint, this goes back to the slide that we looked at earlier that was really addressing the fact that messaging applications are such a powerful platform. And when we take a look at the latest data that was back from November before all this came down, 75% of organizations' customers prefer to either text or chat with businesses. So this is one of the challenges, is businesses may not have incorporated messaging as one of their main communications platforms. They may not have incorporated SMS communication as one of their main platforms, and that's putting them at a big disadvantage. In many ways, our audiences, our customers have outinvested us as organizations. They're expecting to be able to message or text with you, and if you don't have that availability to the individuals, then you may be missing out on the opportunities. This is going to be even more important because coming up this year, we're seeing Messenger integrate with Instagram Direct and integrate with WhatsApp, the 3 messaging platforms that are owned by Facebook. And you will be able to operate just within Messenger and receive or respond to communications from all of those other platforms. We see that in its first release with the latest Facebook stores, where we're getting the ability to do shopping through Facebook's platform as well as Instagram. So getting yourself sorted out and being able to message your individual customers or allow them to message you, and more than likely incorporating a chatbot into that, really is a key piece of communication. Stories is the game changer, and the majority of content that is actually happening within Facebook is being driven by stories. And so organizations really need to think about what they're doing when it comes to a stories perspective. And it's not just the social media platforms that we would think of. LinkedIn has confirmed that stories are coming to LinkedIn, and they just got done last month deploying them into Brazil. And so they are being deployed on a global basis, which essentially gives us almost every single social media platform has a stories option. Twitter has fleets, Instagram has Instagram stories, Snapchat started stories, Messenger and Facebook both have stories, and LinkedIn's got stories coming. So thinking about how you incorporate stories in the content that you deploy is also becoming extremely key. At the end of the day, video is one of the most important components. When you think about the content that you're creating, making sure that about 70% of every piece of content that you deploy on any social media platform is related to video has become absolutely essential for organizations. Some of the current trends are that 6 out of 10 people would rather watch online videos than television. 78% of people watch videos every week, and 55% are watching them every day. And the key is that 72% of customers would rather learn about products or services by way of video. And even in a B2B environment, a business-to-business environment, what we're seeing is that before somebody even reaches out to an organization, they have typically watched 8 to 10 videos and have essentially almost made the sales decision or choices based on those videos before they even reach out to your company. And it doesn't end with employees. 59% of executives would rather watch a video than read text, which is why video is so key across LinkedIn. And we are seeing live video coming to all of these platforms. LinkedIn's live video is in the final stages of its global release. It's been in beta testing for almost a year now, and we're seeing more and more indications that live streaming on LinkedIn will be available in the coming months. I believe it's actually even this afternoon that they're running, LinkedIn's running a webinar to talk about the integration of live video with LinkedIn events, one of the other new features that they've released as they're going along. So thinking about the tools that you use, the type of content when you would live stream, and how you go about engaging with your audiences through video has really become key. When we take a look at Facebook, they've jumped on the bandwagon as well with the integration of messenger rooms. This gives you the ability to have 50 people simultaneously in a meeting at no cost, able to be integrated across Messenger. You can have a messenger room through your Facebook page, through Facebook groups, through any of these elements that really come into play. So when we look at it from these perspectives, thinking about what we do as far as our creation of video and how we go about deploying and engaging really becomes key. And what we're seeing right now going on over COVID-19 is people are looking at a greater amount of engagement with individual organizations. Facebook Live broadcasts are up 50% over the last 2 months. And we're seeing that consistent pattern as the amount of engagement, the amount of communication that is going on through digital platforms is hitting record highs as individuals are looking for ways to engage and connect with organizations in a non-face-to-face environment. And that's part of the challenges that organizations are going to face is how do you go about engaging and connecting and perhaps reevaluating your communication processes, looking at your tactical deployment and thinking about how are you going to be able to effectively answer questions, deal with questions, and perhaps a remote delivery option for months to come. And a lot of the discussions that we're seeing happening at higher levels within businesses are suggesting that we're going to see a complete redesign of consumer behavior. Consumers may never get back to behaving and interacting with organizations the way that they did before. They're going to be much more digitally oriented, and organizations are going to need to be using their analytics, their data, to make sure that they're recognizing where these trends are going, which platforms are your users wanting to engage with you on, and how do you go about reaching out to them and dealing with that. The other part that has really come in from a video perspective is that transparency and trust is one of the biggest issues. And the majority of individuals say that video is the medium that helps to create the greatest transparency between an organization and an individual. And so we really need to start thinking about what type of video content we're using, how we're going about engaging in both live, whether it's through messenger rooms, a LinkedIn live broadcast through an event, or through WebEx, such as we're using today. The other piece that you may not have seen yet, but you will very shortly, is that Facebook has done a major update to their new interface, refocusing their content. One of the challenges that organizations face that are using Facebook is they haven't adapted their strategy to meet the changes that came about last year. If you're simply using a Facebook page to engage and communicate with your audience, you're really not reaching your audience. We're seeing across, on average, less than 0.5% of your Facebook fans are ever seeing your content showing up in their feed. Facebook's EdgeRank is filtering out that algorithm, and there's many reasons for it. Organizations are not targeting their content. They're putting out too much content that's not being engaged with. And so we're really down to, if you've got 1,000 fans who have liked your page, then you're really down to maybe 5 or 6 of those are ever going to be seeing the content showing up in their feed. Because of that, the focus, as Mark Zuckerberg brought up last year, is on friends, families, and groups. So since 2019, your page is still necessary, but it's not where you achieve any of your social media goals on Facebook. You have to use your page simply as a means of recruiting people into your groups. It's within groups as a business that your success is going to be achieved. And you have the ability as a page for about the last year and a half now to be able to create the group as a page, to run that group as a page, and be really able to engage with your audiences in that perspective. The new Facebook feed is going to have a dedicated tab for your group comments. And instead of them only seeing 1% or less than 1% of your content, they're going to be able to see 100% of the content if they choose to set their notifications from the group that direction. And so this is where, as an organization, we've got to be adjusting our content, adjusting where we're achieving those goals to match what is actually working. And our analytics, our data, is going to drive those decisions. And taking a look at where you're getting that communication is going to be absolutely key from that perspective. So that's one of the key pieces that we wanted to sort of take a look at from the context of what is going on within the digital and social media space, and really addressing some of the key elements that we're taking a look at as far as the main changes. So to summarize, it's all about messenger or messaging applications, stories as far as your content, and video is absolutely key. These are the big pieces that we really need to think about. So based on some of those aspects, and please don't limit yourself to just the elements that we've talked about this morning. If you have questions about anything related to digital or social media, feel free to send them out, and we'll see if we can address those for you in our remaining time today.
Excellent. Thank you, Lyle. Really interesting to see the way those trends, because they've always been there. For example, like I know when I go to sites and if I'm shopping for a new product or a new service, I look for that chat function right away because I don't want to take the time to have to try and browse what's on the site. You want to talk to someone right away. And the last thing you, at least these days, you seem to want to do is spend your time on phone waiting. You want quick information. And the fact that that's just really sort of skyrocketing now with the way the things are happening in the world, it makes complete sense.
Yeah, like the stat that we shared there, Justin, that suggested it was
Mm-hmm.
79%. That was literally about 50% earlier in the year last year. In January, February is about 54. And so it
Yeah.
might jump from 54 to 79 as far as that being their preferred platform. And so that's really one of the pieces that organizations have to really start to think about to see, well, where are we going to be able to take a look at that.
Mm-hmm. And the videos piece you shared, I don't think there's many products that I purchase online. Again, this is before the COVID situation when it was ordering online was like your way to shop. I wouldn't go to YouTube and look for a channel that reviews products to get some honest unboxings or whatnot on how is this product and what is the, like, how does that product, how did it last over time? Things like that, right? So I can see that video being absolutely huge and something often overlooked.
Yeah, and that's where, we really have the golden ratio, and that's that 70% of the content that you put out really has to be video based. And so organizations have to have a clear plan for how are they going about creating that content. How do they have a plan for making sure that they're formatting it correctly for the appropriate platforms? Because a video that you put on YouTube cannot be put on Facebook, cannot be put on Twitter, because they've got to be formatted differently. They've got to be different links, and they really need to be customized to the specific platform.
Yeah. We got loads of questions for you now. So thank you, everyone that's participating. Please continue to share your questions in the Q&A. So Lyle, I'll jump in here now on some of our audience questions. When it comes to active users for messaging, how significant is it that despite the various platforms, 4 of them are all Facebook in one form or another?
Well, I guess it's significant in the fact that Mark Zuckerberg knew that where things were going was going to be more private communications. And that's why he also knew that the life expectancy of Facebook was going to be limited, because we're not using social media to communicate anymore. We're using social media to consume media content. If we take a look at Instagram, if we take a look at YouTube, the two that are really strong, it's all about we go there to consume content. Our conversations, our engagement are now all being done through messaging apps. So that's one of the reasons why Facebook separated Messenger from Facebook, so that people don't have to have a Facebook account to have a Messenger account. It's why he acquired WhatsApp. And so he's really realizing that the world is going to be based on messaging. And that's really where their acquisitions is trying to dominate that messaging space. That's in a North American context. When we take a look at WeChat, WeChat is still very strong, but that's more in an Asian-based format. And regardless of where you are, the main thing is that messaging is key. And the advantage of the 3 big ones all being tied together, Messenger, WhatsApp, and Instagram Direct, into the single platform, means that we only have one platform that we have to create a chatbot for to respond to some of those repetitive, easy questions, on an ongoing basis.
Excellent. We have one of our folks wondering: is the focus on videos, is that applicable for NFPs as well as businesses? Absolutely.
Video content is key on everything, and it comes down to 2 pieces as well. It ties into the retention of the message. People retain about 90% of what they get via video and about 10% of what they get via text. And I think when we look at social media content, we're really about 80 to 85% of people would prefer to watch a live stream than to read a social media post. So it does apply whether we're dealing with non-for-profits or for-profits for B2B. It really doesn't matter. It's about the audience, and the audience wants to consume video content.
Yeah. That actually answers the next question about how applicable is this to the nonprofit sector. And I think it's a great point. If this is the way, the trend of how consumers are looking to connect, then everybody needs to adjust to this. Lyle, do you have any advice on how to create the stories or the videos?
Yeah, a lot of it. We actually we spend several days of that on the DSMP program, looking specifically at how to do that. It really depends on the platform. At a simple context, if all you're using is your mobile app from your mobile device or using your smartphone, most smartphones today are capable of shooting 4K video and deploying it in whatever resolution that you want. There's a really great app, Adobe Premiere Rush, which gives you the ability to shoot and edit and do text overlays and everything directly within the app that you work with directly from your mobile device to be able to sort of deploy on that context. And there's several, different cameras and tools and resources. The one big thing, depending upon the type of video content that you're doing, is having a stabilized system. So picking up a stabilizer from DJI that you just put your phone into that you can buy for about $130 these days will give you much smoother content. But the other big thing is investing in good audio. People will be a lot more forgiving of bad video than they will from bad audio. So using something even as simple as the Rode Go microphones. These are wireless lavalier microphones that are only about $300 Canadian, and it allows you to attach them to even the smallest camera system and be able to use really good quality audio.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm almost wondering if you're seeing my questions because you answered the next one on. There was a question on what is for nonprofits or organizations with limited resources. What's the most efficient and effective approach to developing and implementing a digital social media strategy?
Well, I guess from a social media strategy perspective, to be quite honest, there really is no such thing as a social media strategy. Your strategic plan is dealing with your audience, your target audiences, your goals and objectives. That doesn't change whether you're talking about traditional media or digital media. The key part of that is your strategic plan should never mention any channels. Your channels need to be in your tactical plan because it's got to be dynamic. So like for an example, your strategy is going to be something you're going to look at maybe once a year, and then you come back and revisit it because your target audience doesn't change, your goals don't change, but how you go about achieving those goals may change. So now that we've got this big ability to have messenger rooms, and we've got this ability to do live streaming through LinkedIn events and to do virtual events, maybe previously we were trying to do our B2B sales or reach our business audiences through a Facebook live broadcast, but we now need to pivot that once we have LinkedIn because that's going to be the better platform to do that. So, the really key thing is to think about what are the goals and objectives and who your target audiences are, and that's for your strategic plan. But your tactical plan has to be based on looking at it from two perspectives. What is the best thing that you need to do? And then which of those are you capable of doing right now with your tools and resources? You're better off to be doing less platforms, but be doing them properly or doing them well. And then your analytics will show you what's working and what's not. And that will drive your investment in time or energy or resources into that perspective.
Yeah. Oh, great answer. Lyle, do you have any comments or suggestions as to how nonprofits that create festivals or events can use this technology? And do you know of any organizations doing good stuff right now?
Yeah, there's lots out there that are doing really great stuff with the different tools. And I guess it really depends upon what type of event that you're running, what things you're thinking about as far as festivals or those components. And so all of these tools are able to be utilized. It just really comes in when we take a look at the key pieces that's happening from that context. As far as those that are doing it well, it really depends, because it's hard to really define whether somebody is doing something well, because it may appear that they're doing good on the outside, but unless you know what their actual goals or objectives are that they're trying to achieve, then you really don't know whether they're achieving those, because that's all in the back end of their analytics and those components. But I mean, at the end of the day, this is what's working, and we're seeing a lot of organizations, particularly moving over to groups from Facebook, because that's the only way you're going to get your message in front of your audience. And that's the news feed is well and truly dead. Your page is simply only being used on Facebook to recruit people into your groups, and that's got to be your priority strategy for organizations on Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Well, something I'm seeing in a trend in these questions and your answers is, where are the supports, or what would your recommendation be for supports to help organizations, regardless of what their business, profit or for-profit, or nonprofit, to not only learn how to use it, but then learn how to understand it and learn what to do with the data and how to adjust? Do you have any recommendations on where supports exist?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of resources available. I mean, we do the digital and social media program across Canada through our training partners at the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon, at Sprott University, at Sprott School of Business at Carleton University in Ottawa, as well as the Gardner Center here in St. John's. And all of those programs are moving into a online delivery for the next 12 months until June of next year, due to the COVID situation and the changes in people's travel and business. We also have a podcast that we do, and as well as several free sessions that we will sometimes run to help people stay up to date. But it's also about thinking about what your goals are and what you're really trying to achieve, and finding those that are experts or really knowing what they're doing in that area. The problem is it's constantly changing. Our training that we do will typically change on a daily basis as far as the content that we deliver. It's never the same program twice.
Mm-hmm. So follow you on social media is the short answer.
Well, that's one of the ways, yes.
We had a question from someone. As a faculty department at MUN, do you recommend that we utilize more video stories in our recruitment strategies?
100%. And this is where two things have really driven some changes. So if we're talking specifically about Facebook, which I'm assuming that you are, we've seen just on Friday that Facebook is looking at doing a double row of stories content up at the top, because of the fact that that's really the main focus. We're sitting just about half of the content on Facebook is in stories. And so because of that, it's almost to the point where I think we're going to have stories is going to be the primary feed, and anything that's non-stories is going to move into a secondary feed on Facebook soon. And, the difference when we're taking a look at stories is it really does become key, and particularly when you're doing a live stream within the stories. If you're doing that on Instagram, that is the only thing that's going to move you to the front of the queue in front of the person's Instagram account that they engage with most frequently, is if you're broadcasting live and then they're following you. And so it really does become key to sort of think about what you're doing and when stories are appropriate for the type of content that you create.
One of our participants is on a church council, and they've had success with Facebook live streaming from the church. Do you have any advice on how they could expand or grow their audience?
Yeah, well, I guess for growing the audience on Facebook Live, there's several ways that you can go about doing that. The more that you can get people into your groups, and then they'll get the message and they'll get the live streams more frequently, from that perspective. The other thing is to stream out to YouTube because that's going to give you a little bit broader reach and show up more in organic search across those aspects as well. So the other part is if you are doing a live stream within a group, you have the ability to also simultaneously live stream that out to Facebook. Now, one of the things that changed last year is prior to last year, if you were using a output device to live stream to Facebook, you were not allowed to use that same device and simultaneously live stream to another social media platform. Facebook removed that restriction last year, so you don't need now to have completely independent systems to live stream out to both Facebook and YouTube. There's many platforms that could allow you to do that simultaneously.
Mm-hmm. Lyle, do you need to differentiate the content you share in stories from your regular Facebook or Insta feed? And if so, what kind of content is best for stories audiences?
Yeah, so you are differentiating it in the context that your stories are going to be a collection of related posts. And one of the big things is that when you're putting things together into stories, they are really designed to disappear when you're talking about your video content, but you then can repurpose that and deploy it out onto your regular platform or store it or save it or deploy it depending upon which platform you're actually looking at. The main thing is that when we take a look across all of the platforms, I mean, LinkedIn would have been the last social media platform that I ever thought would have had stories, but because that's the type of content that people are engaging with and that people are looking for, that's why we're seeing that, move by LinkedIn to bring stories into their context as well. And so really needing to make sure we sort of connect all that together.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm just looking at the time here now. I've got one more question that hasn't been answered yet. If anyone else wants to share a couple of questions, there's still time. Lyle's agreed to hang out for an extra few minutes if need be. So I'll go to the next one. What suggestions do you have for setting up groups on Facebook if you have multiple strategic initiatives to achieve?
The key thing is like back in the old days, we used to tell organizations that they needed to have multiple Facebook pages because each Facebook page needed to be focused on a specific target audience. Now we're doing that target audiences through our groups. So what we need to do is to create individual groups because you need to make sure that 100% of the content that you put in that group is relevant to 100% of the people that are following you in that group. And so it's really your segmentation that used to require you to maybe have 10 or 15 different Facebook pages so that you had very specific targeted content for your audiences is now allowing you to be able to bring that content in together into one page, but your groups is where that segmentation is going. And so the groups is key. And we're going to have, for most organizations, one Facebook page, but multiple, or two Facebook pages. If you're a government account, you'll need to have an English Facebook page and a French one, and then multiple groups within those pages to deal with your specific audiences that you have.
Lyle, what are your thoughts on the best platform to reach and engage youth, if that's an organization's particular focus?
Depends on the age when you're talking about youth, where you're looking at it. So if you're talking about really young, in the 4 to 15-year-old age demographic, last month they were spending 85 minutes or 80 minutes a day on TikTok. And so TikTok is really the number one in their space. It's a little bit more than it's YouTube, and it's almost double the amount of time that they're spending on Instagram. So if you're talking about a little bit older, then it's Snapchat. It's definitely Snapchat is the key piece when you're looking at that. So TikTok, Snapchat, live streaming, and surprisingly enough, YouTube. In December of last year, for the first time in history, teens spent more time watching YouTube than Netflix. So, YouTube is the one that really helps reach all of those dimensions. But definitely for today's youth, it's Snapchat, Messenger, and TikTok.
Mm-hmm. Just had another question come in. Lyle, you were talking about some of the technology earlier, the microphone and things like that. Do you have a recommendation for a camera or device beyond a smartphone to live stream or record to your platforms?
If you're looking at live streaming, the easiest one is the Mevo. Is the simplest one to be able to do that. That was created by a company called Livestream. It was the first camera that was able to stream directly to the social media platforms. Livestream was acquired by Vimeo, a large video platform, to be able to sort of bring in their live streaming capabilities, because they knew that they needed that piece and they were missing out on that. It's a great tool. The other ones that are great from a camera perspective that you can use is the DJI Pocket Osmo. Is a very small, compact camera, good high quality, capable of 4K 60 frames per second. So those would be some of the main ones, without going to a more larger digital SLR, fancy system from there.
Lyle, what are your thoughts on paid advertisements on Facebook?
Paid ads, really depend upon what you're trying to do with your ad campaigns, regardless of which platform that you're taking a look at. And that's where what we're seeing is, if you're doing paid ads on social media, making sure that you're running them as a multi-stage campaign really becomes key. And that's where the first wave of your campaign is going to be designed to get your audience's attention, figure out who's interested, because nobody's going to not know who you are and immediately buy something from you. You have to build that trust. So we have to look at it as far as, what wave of our campaign do we run that figures out who might be interested in our product or service? And then in the second wave, we run a pay-per-click campaign to try to sort of piece that together and get some conversion. And then you run a pay-per-conversion campaign, where it's really a third wave that you're going through. And so depending upon which platform that you're looking at, Facebook is by far the most targeted that you've got. That will be restricting in what we are able to do as far as remarketing campaigns on Facebook within the next 2 years, when third-party tracking cookies are going to be removed from the Chrome browser, so you won't be able to have that. On another standpoint is, if there's nonprofits out there, one of the big things that is available is the Google Nonprofit Grant, which is part of the Google Nonprofit Program. If you're a nonprofit who's not an academic institution, a government department, or a healthcare organization, it provides you with just a little bit of marketing assistance to the tune of $10,000 US a month in Google search ads into perpetuity. So, at the current exchange rate, I think 10,000 US a month is sitting about 14,000 Canadian. So for most nonprofit organizations to have access to, over $150,000 a year in Google search ads is a massive, massive benefit to help organizations reach their audiences.
Wow. Yeah, that's remarkable. I know this will probably come up in the question. So if there's a link to that information, if you want to just share that with me after the event, I can make sure to share that with everyone who registered after.
Yep, I'm going to do that.
Great, that'd be great. What about, we mentioned a platform for youth. What kind of platforms are best to reach like our elderly population?
Well, Facebook's probably one of the best ones right now, and YouTube are really the two that are key. But Facebook is really the main one. That's why the youth have bailed out, because their parents are there and their grandparents are there. But also, as families are more distributed, that's where the more senior people that we're trying to reach are connecting with their family through Facebook. And so it becomes the platform that they tend to be most familiar with if we're sort of looking at it from that perspective. So Facebook and YouTube would be the two that would fall into that bracket.
We had someone ask, what was the name of that Adobe video app again?
It's a Premiere Rush. If you download it, and it is available for both Android and iOS, and it allows you to export 3 videos for free as a trial, but it is included in the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite and integrates directly with the full version of Premiere to do the video editing, but it's Adobe Premiere Rush. It's a lot better tool than the Adobe Spark, which is another easy-to-use tool that can be used, and it's able to allow you to shoot in either square, widescreen, or vertical, so you can make sure you're shooting in the appropriate format for the platform you're deploying on.
Fantastic. This will be the last question now.
No worries.
Nonprofits, we need to thank our sponsors and supporters. Appropriate to do so on live streams and videos, you think?
Absolutely. And, so that's where, people realize that the needs and the support is there, and the sponsors are an important part about what you do. And that is an absolutely ideal way, is within those live streams and in those videos.
Fantastic. I was doing a very subtle, asking my children to be quiet. Okay, this has been fantastic. Lyle, it's obvious, it's so interesting to see, you're sitting on the cutting edge. Like you said, the training and the services you deliver are never the same. There's so many trends that are happening, and as society faces challenges, technology and social media, it is just on the forefront of adjusting and to whatever the current world's needs are like. Lyle, I want to thank you so much for all the content you shared today, and for everyone who joined us online. Big thank you to the Gardner Center and the Conference and Event Services team at Memorial's Emera Innovation Exchange. Please take a moment to complete the audience poll that will open in your browser when this event closes. We want to know, I'm sure Lyle does too, your thoughts on the event, and any ideas you have on more information you'd like to have access to as we prepare to do more of these webinars in the coming months. Lyle, thanks so much again.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. And if anyone has any questions that they didn't ask, it's okay to send them to me via email, and I'll share them with Lyle. And if he has a couple that he wants to answer or respond to, I'll make sure to get those out to everyone. Take care, everyone, and best wishes.
Have a good weekend, everyone.